As Pesach approaches, Passover approaches, and we've got the matzah crackers out, and it's I find it extraordinary. There's an interview in the Financial Times today. I'm back in the UK, so I'm able to get a copy, and it's odd. It's like some sort of story of a political mechitza. The mechitza is the screen that divides men from women in an Orthodox synagogue, in a shul. And sometimes it's effective, sometimes it's significant, sometimes it's little more than a string vest. And Theresa May has all but disappeared from view under a huge swathe of past sort of conservative misfits. They've all been lumped together and put and thrown behind the curtain, like something out of The Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. And as Labour has taken control and Badenoch or Farage has been left to speak for the right, it's as if half of political humanity in Britain has been screened from view and hidden. And now she's actually in the press. The question has to be, is anything that she's got to say worth listening to? And I must say, the article is quite long, but I'm not really convinced that it's justified. That there are political figures who won't leave the stage even when the curtain has well and truly fallen. And then there are those like Theresa May, who, having exited Downing Street, not with fireworks, but with a tearful grimace, has seemed to vanish almost entirely. Well, of course, she stood behind Boris Johnson and made carping comments. Actually, like Rishi Sunak, she was better out of office than she was in office for the things that she said in the House of Commons. But now, it's not retirement nor disgrace, but something far more British. She projects embarrassment, perhaps. Or she is embarrassing, perhaps. Her recent re-emergence on the pages of the Financial Times, I don't know when the interview was actually took place, probably earlier this week, is lunch with the Financial Times. It offers a curious glimpse into both the woman and the wider phenomenon of political disappearance. It's as if a great velvet curtain, or to borrow from religious imagery, this political mechitza, has descended across the stage of public life, cordoning off a whole generation, and gone are the Hammonds, the Greening, the Gawks, and May herself barely visible from behind the lacquered doors of the House of Lords. Why now, then? Why reappear now? In the piece, Theresa May is herself a little awkward, a little stilted, mildly humorous, and at times surprisingly candid. She discusses Brexit, Trump, Johnson, and the conference speech where everything quite literally fell apart. Dancing Queen. And in this polite Italian lunch and bray, we're reminded of a woman for whom politics was always a burden of responsibility, never an opportunity for self-promotion, or at least that's what she says. And here's the question. Does anything she say now make it worth hearing from her? Well, perhaps not in terms of her immediate influence. She's not an active player in today's conservative psychodrama, where Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage now dominate, but her presence, or rather her absence, tells us something crucial about the moment that we're in. And I think it's the absence of Theresa May which is actually worth thinking about. We're watching a political alignment that is not just ideological but generational, and the technocrats of the 2010s, Cameron, Osborne, May, have been eclipsed not merely by populists but by the disappearance of brain power, by the disappearance of centrism as a compelling force. May's vision, managerial, moralistic, quietly pro-state, preceded by her tenure in the Home Office, which has set the scene for so much abuse that's followed. All of this has been rendered, Theresa May has been rendered obsolete by the noise of culture wars and ideological tribalism, but she is responsible for so much of the damage done, from the bureaucratic thrustings of the Home Office and the tardiness and the laziness of the Home Office to Windrush and the failure of the government to recognise its responsibilities. And yet, in this lunch interview, she attempts to make herself heard again on modern slavery, on immigration, even the political risk of chasing Farage down rhetorical rabbit holes. She warns that by doing so, the Conservatives alienate the moderate middle, the very voters who once handed her Maidenhead and are now handing it to the Lib Dems. On Trump, she's oddly generous. I don't understand why. On Johnson, diplomatically cold, but no surprise there, she didn't like him. And on her own failure, surprisingly reflective. I shouldn't have allowed that to happen, she says, of the 2017 campaign over centralisation. It's very difficult when you're that person meaning the one who has to carry it all, the one who fails publicly. And perhaps that is May's strange legacy, not triumph, not ideology, but failure, sort of dignified with age, burdensome failure as a kind of virtue. She wasn't strong and stable, she was fragile and flailing, and unlike so many memoirists of her age, of our age, she admits it. She doesn't claim vindication or vision. She carries her premiership like a bruised relic with quiet regret. That's a lesson that Liz Truss could learn. So is it worth reading what she has to say? Yes. Yes, because not because it's urgent, but because it's rare. Rare to hear from a former leader who speaks not with vengeance, but with rueful humility. Rare to hear someone reflect on government not as a personal glory, but as an exhausting moral enterprise. In the end, Theresa May has become the patron saint of lost causes. Theresa May, the Saint Jude of British politics. Theresa May, canonised for her reflection. Theresa May, who was useless in office, has now become dignified. Her party, her premiership, even her beloved geography, dismissed as advanced colouring in. But in a political world full of noise, her soft re-entry, like a whisper in a Berkshire trattoria, might just serve as a reminder of a time when failure still had the dignity to apologise and power was not confused with volume. I think Theresa May should be lauded as the single greatest failure who has the dignity and the reflection to acknowledge what she did and how badly she did it. Now, believe me, there are many others who should be following her example.